Hello, and welcome to the beginner guide for Plague. In today's build, we will be using the perks that Plague has, alongside with regular perks that you get from the scratch, so you don't have to get any teachables to use this build, which means you can start out playing Plague right away. First up, we have Bitter Murmur, which unlocks potentially your aura reading ability. Whenever a gen is done, you get vision of anyone within 16 meters of a gen for 5 seconds. And when the final generator is done, you get aura revealed on all survivors for 10 seconds. This helps us find people when they're on gens, know which way they're going, in case we get a rough start to a match. Secondly, we're using Corrupt Intervention, which is Plague's own perk. This helps you start out with 2 minutes of 3 gens being blocked as far away from you as possible, meaning you only have 5 gens to patrol, basically. But it also shows you an estimate of where survivors will spawn at, as they usually spawn opposite of your location. However, survivors can spawn closer to you than the furthest 3 gens, which means sometimes Corrupt Intervention will just be straight up a dead zone. Do make sure to not chase survivors around too much in the corrupted land, as you will not be interrupting anyone working on gens in these 2 minutes at the start of the game. For the other Plague perk we'll be using, we have Infectious Fright, which helps you see survivors within your terror radius whenever you get a down, be it with your M1 or with your Red Puke. This also helps you in case you're against flashlights, knowing that people are nearby. If they are, you can try and get them, get an easy cheeky hit if they're waiting for the flashlight. Or you can prep yourself to look into walls to make sure you don't get a flashlight save and lose a lot of pressure that you otherwise would have gained. And finally, we're using Whispers. This is another perk that is available from the start of the game, which lets you see if survivors are within 32 meters of you, which is the same as your terror radius. The way this works is the perk lights up, telling you, oh, somebody's within 32 meters of you, and you will start hearing whispers as well. They're a bit faint, and if you're in your power, you won't notice it as much, so do make sure to look at the icon for info as to whether or not you should be where you're at right now. Whispers is great for your early game, as it lets you know if you need to be in the corrupted territory looking for someone. It lets you know if you should infect the nearest gen to your corrupted gens. And it also lets you know if survivors are near any other gens you happen to go by on your way to your corrupted zone. On top of that, at the end game, it helps you out finding survivors that are hiding out, maybe trying to look for the hatch, or just, hiding away from gens. In the mid game, it doesn't have as much, but the mid game is where Plague shines anyway. So Bitter Murmur will give you aura reading. When gens are done, you can get easy hits that way. And in general, just having the steady flow of Red Puke incoming will help your mid game tremendously. In the video I'm about to show you, we play on Haddonfield, which is one of the hardest Plague maps, as the pools will spawn in very awful spots, which survivors can make a hard time for you if you have to go and get them. But as long as you force enough survivors to clench, you will end up with pools that are good eventually. So let's get on with the game, and I'll be commentating along the way with my thought process and the like, and hopefully it'll be a help for you as a hopefully new coming Plague player. See you at the end of the video. I guess. I think if you kill the base 4 survivors, we're loading into the game, and we realize we're on Haddonfield. We immediately look for a corrupted territory and see the nearest gen, so we start moving towards it, checking whispers along the way to see what's going on. We don't see whispers just yet. We see it, so we immediately go up to the gen in order to infect it. This makes it so there's 4 gens now instead of 3 that the survivors can't work on without getting infected. So we keep walking into the infected territory as whispers turned off while we infected it. They heard our terror radius, started walking away. And here we see our first survivor, and we start the first chase. So what we want here is to get the infection. As we go for that, the Claudette makes a mistake and gets herself stuck. As we realize this, we charge up her puke and make sure to fully infect her. Do look down to make sure you don't get blinded though. We get the full infection here in order to insta-down with the M1. We hear the infection's fright, we look a bit, see if we see anyone, and then we look into the wall to make sure we don't get flashlighted. Good start. Good start. Because she ran into a corner. Yeah, it's half of... So here we get the first hook, and we know somebody is nearby, so we immediately walk to our base pool in order to protect our hook here. You know someone else is nearby, so... He doesn't get near, I guess. We start moving back towards our hook, because we know an unhook will happen eventually. We move a bit towards the other gens in order to put some pressure on those. We see someone trying to open a chest, and we start our second chase. Try to charge your red puke as little as possible. I charge a little bit too long here, but it doesn't matter as we get 2 quick hits and get our second down. Meanwhile,
not quite.
We have the unhook happen, and another infection happens. They immediately go to cleanse.
There's the cleanse.
Which means we know approximately where the survivors will be at. We move towards the next second pool, and as we move there, a second cleanse happens. We now know where survivors are at. We go for the second gen, or second pool, to pick it up as our power is about to run out. Our first gen is done. It's around the hook, so we move towards it in order to start the chase when they do the unhooking.
Pretty sure it was, but...
I make the mistake of not looking around properly for aura reading, but we end up finding people anyway, and we get an easy down for the third chase. But it's the same person, so I immediately look for the infectious and start chasing that person instead to get the slug value and not waste time taking a DS to the face. We walk here, and we try to find someone. Around here, I will be wasting time as I don't check whispers. You see it turning off, and I don't turn around immediately. Instead, I go downstairs and check. This is where whispers helps you save time, which will be crucial for keeping your pressure up and not getting gens done fast, as you don't have any actual regression past your corrupt intervention. In the meanwhile, the slug gets up, they miss a skill check, so we get to them and we infect both of them as her power is now run out. Go for the infected person, but she gets us done, so instead we go for the Nancy who hasn't moved anywhere, and we go for that chase instead. It doesn't matter, we got the infection on both, we can chase whoever we want. We walk down a tight alley, so we go for the easy infection, right into walking by a pallet. Instead of risking the stun, we just go for the extra infection. Now we can chase as she is fully infected. We just need 1 M1 instead of 2 in order to down the Nancy. I am 1 around the corner here because I think she's camping the pallet, but she's smarter than that.
I thought she was
except she didn't run away as I did that, so she doesn't make it back to the pallet, and we get the down. Here we look at the tree in order to not get any flashlights, even though infectious didn't proc, so we're pretty sure there's nobody nearby. We walk to the nearest hook, and it gets saboed. We drop immediately in order to get an infection here. We see the noise notification here, so we don't react to it, but it's a head-on. Now we know an exhaustion perk. We should have realized that was what was happening, but we got the infection before that chase ended, so we immediately start the next chase with an uninfected survivor. We're around the God House. We try to get away from that, so we lose this chase, and we get to the slug, and we start chase again. We know this Claudette has been infected for a while, and she's in open territory, so we go for the full infection. Try to aim as much as possible. Here I make the mistake of looking at the HUD, seeing a Claudette gets infected, but that's the obsession. The one we're chasing is the other Claudette. So there we get the hit.
Oh, it was the other one that was
and as any good killer, don't lose your cool. Stay calm and collected, just like I did in this game.
Oh, fuck's sake.
And just keep on playing. Just keep on playing.
Bullshit, man.
You get the chase.
Woo, we get Haddonfield.
And you never ever let the salt get to you. Just finish your chase, continue what you're doing. You made a mistake, you realized it, you got better because of it. Here we get the third hit. We get a sound notification. We get a sound notification. We check. What is this? It's not a degen. It's the locker. What's her thought here? It's the head-on. She wants another head-on. As the plague, you have the privilege of just infecting the locker and leaving it. Now she's trapped in there for 35 seconds if she doesn't want to get infected. We could have just grabbed there, but I didn't realize this was the girl. I realized these were two others. She teabags me trying to get me into the head-on. I walk around it, and we just go for the down. We are tunneling here, as we just hooked this girl before. We see that she leaves the locker, gets the infection.
Not sure.
And we infect on the ground. You can infect on hook as well if you forget, but ideally you do it immediately to get the counter running. If they get fully infected before the save, they will infect one another, giving you more pools eventually.
What do you have to complain about, dude?
And as always, just never get salty. Just keep your head in the game and play around.
Especially when you're playing like fucking bitches.
Good movement is crucial.
Are you serious?
Just keep your cool, learn your maps, and never make mistakes.
So much for that.
Knowing your map will save you lots of time.
You still have to vault. Like, look at this fountain. You have to vault through a window to get to it. Like, what's wrong with this fucking map with the placements? Let's just place them on the ground. Unless you cleansed over here, I think. I'd rather go by the gems.
There's two cleanses happening, so we know where survivors are around. We hear the head-on and we start moving towards it. We make the mistake of going from the wrong angle here. If we had gone from the other angle, we could have gotten the hit. We know that, but we see the locked animation, so we go for a hit, get that easily around the pallet. As she's locked in animation, we know the hit. We try to go around the hit like that, but she ducks. Well played. Another locked animation, so we charge the puke, but she ducks, and then we go for another puke as she is locked in a tight area.
I have Diaz, I can play however I want. I have head-on, I can play however I want.
And as always, never get salty. Just play your game, slog if need be. And
we're not working on this one.
Keep looking for other survivors while you keep the pressure with slogging.
This one.
Infect on the ground as our puke ran out, and we have a regular infection now. Just get that running. We see another Claudette here. We try to get the puke. Here we should have infected the pallet, as she would have infected immediately, and we could have ended this chase a little earlier. But we go a bit further, we get the infection, and we go back to our slug.
No way, you still have DS?
There we go. We see her again. We know she's been infected for a while, so we go for the full infection here. We infect the pallet, so if she drops it, she gets a bit more infection from interacting with it. She drops it, gets a bit more interaction. She flashlights us as we break the pallet. Use your ears when this happens. Try to keep track of the survivor, ideally, but I run into the hook person instead. But we keep the scratch marks on. She doesn't get too much movement with the chase. She's back at the destroyed pallet, and the save happens in the meantime. We force her to the unsafe side of the pallet and break it. Use her ears again to keep chase, but we lose her. It happens even for the best of us. We see Nancy, so we start for that chase instead. We have an infection on the other girl, even though it took a long time. We go up here and we see the window. We block it and force a different movement. We get an M1. We should have gone for the infection here, but it's okay. As we vault, we hear someone coughing. She was cleansing, so we go for the easy M1 instead. No reason to force a chase if you have an easier target nearby. With infectious fright, we see someone again looking for a chest, and we start a second chase while we keep a slug going. We expect a hit on again, so we go from an angle, but there's nobody here.
I saw the scratch marks after I did the pull-out.
So here we see the scratch marks leading away, but instead of going down, we just go back to our slug. But again, the very tenacious Claudette wants her head on, so she makes the noise notification. And this is how you play around head-on properly. Walk a bit close, she fakes it, and we get a free grab out of a locker.
Yep. Play like a bitch, die
A good
like
killer's
bitch.
gracious in both victory and defeat. Here we go for a pool, as we realize we have a lot of pools. We hear the sound of the pool, and then we get
Oh, she
all
got
of the pools
immediately
there.
infected again.
The
Interesting.
reason for
I just
this
picked one up. How am I
is
getting
that
them all?
the sound
Makes
of
no
a cleanse
sense. I see it
happens
over here.
after
Just
the
crouching.
cleanse has actually happened. So we had all 6 pool happen. The game loads up that we will get everything in a second. So we take a pool, but it's too late and we lose all our pools and get a second power immediately after injecting one. The only saving grace is we get a bit of extra points there. We chase the Nancy, get an easy down in a tight area, and we hook her. We only have 1 survivor remaining and
First
2
hook for
gens.
her, and she
We could have
punched
just camped to
over
death
somewhere.
here, but instead I go for the surge as we heard the cleanse.
Oh,
We try and
turned
check
off.
for her. We use whispers. We know she is in our area unless it's the hook person.
For this one.
So we keep looking around, trying to prevent the hook from happening too early. We see scratch marks, so we expect the locker because we've been conditioned to that from the other Claudette.
Or did she run this way and then down?
We go down here to check a bit.
I saw her steps here.
We infect the locker just in case she's there. She'll get infected.
Weird.
If she walks out,
Guess
it's
I'll
it's
go
it's
pick up
better
that
like
power.
if you're
Let them
uncertain,
save
just
or something.
infect the lockers instead of checking them. It's faster, and you can do multiple if they're in tight areas like the downstairs of that House of Pain. There's a save, but we go for the
I
power,
knew she was
expecting
nearby.
that. Be as strong as possible whenever
When
you
she's not
know
infected,
where
she doesn't
survivors
make
will be
any noise.
around.
It's hard to find.
So now we have to find one or the other and get another hook in order to end the game. We see the cleanse, so we know where to look for Nancy, and we see her immediately after the cleanse. But we have about 45 seconds of our power remaining, so we just go for the chase. No problem. We don't respect the palette. We expect her to be running, and she is. Scratch marks disappear. And when that happens randomly, you look around for a bit, and then you go for the locker.
What?
I expect a DS here, but she didn't
DS,
have
I
it.
guess? Oh, you're not DS.
And thus we go for another hook.
Right here, it will obviously be better to have barbecue, but that's not allowed for this build.
Like I said, barbecue would be
Oh,
better
the
for
hatch is right
finding,
here.
but
Well, I guess I'll
Claudette
just wait
happens to
then.
be in here. As we know where our hatch is, we can just wait for the death and we can close hatch immediately. We lose our power, so we infect the hook, just in
Want the game
case.
to be over. So
Might as well get the points while we're waiting.
I have a power right there if need be. Actually, let's just go and pick it
And we
up.
get the power, just in case she
Save
goes
them
for the save in our face.
kill
We can
time for them.
down both of them
So
really
here-
fast with our power and get the 4K that way. The way I'm standing on the hatch, by the way, is also preventing anyone from using a key. You have to stand at the part with the handle on it. If you stand in front of there, you can't use a key to open it. So you can body block keys that way. Obviously it doesn't help much, but it's good to know in case they had found one. But if you M1 or anything, they can use it. With Plague specifically, you can fully infect and then M1 for the insta-down, so they can't use it. But it's a minor thing. And there's the death. We puke around a bit just to try and find her. And we wait for the hatch to open so we can close it.
She should be by an
A smart
exit
play
gate,
would have been
so-
to go for the exit gate, but the Claudette is not aware that the killer has priority when it comes to the hatch. Just spam the spacebar and you'll always get the priority there. And the final chase of the game begins. We have a little bit of power here. She decides to blind us, so we just charge the puke and hit her. I didn't realize that my power was already running out, so I expected the blind to actually remove it, but that's not the case. You keep your power even if you get blinded as plague. The only thing that removes it is pallet stuns.
Unfortunate. Thought I had it.
And here we are in the House of Pain. Luckily nobody has looped us here until now. But as we're running the final survivor, it doesn't matter. We just bloodlust our way to victory here. You can loop this with red puke. If the stairs go up here, you can puke up through the window, and you can get a hit that way. So that's the best place to start charging the red puke if you want to get them there. That is a long stretch of the same direction into a locked animation, which means they can't juke your red puke at that point. And that was a no teachables plague 4K on Haddonfield. Thanks for watching.
Wow.
We did it.
Good game.